Hi there, this is Chuck with Pocket Snakes. I'm going to wet stretch some leather. I'm going to wrap a drumstick. And I don't know what else I'm going to do, but I have to measure how much material I'm going to need. So one way to do that is just take and generally wrap the object. Wrap the object so you're making sort of the pass you want to, which will give you an idea of how much material you need. And so it just is a good starting point. And of course, it doesn't want to behave, so okay. One of the things when you wet stretch leather is what you lose in width, you gain in length. And this is rough cut veg tan cowhide lace. So I'm just showing how to measure it in general to get an idea as to what it takes to cover. Mind you, this is a 7A, so the diameter is a little less. And I'm just trying to get the gist, how much material I'm going to need. And I know I need 8 foot for a ball. So I'm going to do a 2-layer, a turk's head knot on a silicone ball on this thing. Kind of a crazy thing. I haven't figured out quite what I'm doing with it, but when you're just trying to figure out what you're going to do, it is useful to know how much material you're going to need, roughly. Now, if you're breeding this, you can use this same method to figure out how much string you're going to need. If you wrap it all the way down and then all the way back up and then divide it by however many strands, you know, you can get an idea. So I'm going to go up to the end and I'm going to pull this off. So it looks like we have about 9 feet. Give it some for extra. I'm going to need about the same for the ball end. So I'm going to double that. And then I'm going to double it again to get the material I'm going to need to do 2 of them, because when you're doing stuff you might as well make 2. I'm going to give myself an extra 18 inches because you can always cut it shorter, but you can't cut it longer. Okay, so I'm going to have a bucket here with a couple inches of water. It doesn't require a lot of water for this. So there's about 36-foot strip of veg tan leather. And it's about 8 millimeters right now. That too shall change. And then let the bubbles out. And then you kind of want to squeeze some of the leather, squeeze some of the water out. Okay. Then the bucket is there so it can catch the squeezed water. Run it over the hook. And you want to squeeze the water out of it. this is squishing down to be about a 1/4 inch of string from 8mm. It's going to change as I do it. This is vegetarian cowhide. This process is nice for squeezing the excess moisture out and lengthening the strand. So you don't have to wet stretch your leather, you don't have to resize your leather. Everything you can do to even out the differences will make this more efficient. I'm going to reverse the process and pull it the other direction as well. Just even it out. You see it continue to squeeze the water out. Just showing you what I do, how I go about doing some of the things I do for more consistent string quality. Very few people wet stretch their leather. Basically, mostly it's people making whips that do this, which is what I do mainly. Usually not wrapping things, but I want to do a wrapping video. The only thing I can wrap this point we probably have close to 40 or 50 feet, and that's fine by me because the surface area covered will still be roughly the same. Okay, so I'm going to find where the wiggles are. So the wiggles are on the inside, I believe, where it's an inconsistent width. Yep, on the inside. So I'm going to toss that thing down and bring us over and set us in front of the beveling station, or try to. And of course, I'm not the best planner at this stuff. But I can at least give you a bird's eye view of what I'm up to. So I've got the string that I just wet stretched. It's still damp. I want to take it down enough to take the wiggle out of it. So loosen the adjuster so the fence isn't locked down. I'm going to bring it down until it's a little tighter than the lace. I'm going to change the blade. So I was cutting really loose lace, now I'm cutting veg tan cowhide, even though it's damp. there's lots of things, and I do things way different than other people, so I try and share what I'm doing. Yes?
Are you in the bathroom?
No, I'm in here shooting a video. What can I do for you?
Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt.
You're fine.
What do I use to clean the stuff?
Clean.
Sure said to use these?
Yeah,
That will
that's
be fine
fine.
on the wood?
yeah, it'll be fun.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. So I'm gonna narrow it up a little bit more and just peel off a little bit maybe. Okay, so there's cutting. So I'm just gonna knock back anything that wiggles this too much out of sorts. So it's shaving a little hair off, and here it's about the same width. It's a little narrower than the blade, but in this case, because I'm doing a wrap, I'm not after perfection. I just want it to not have any super wide areas. Plus, this further stretches the lace or the string. If you want to ask questions, you can leave questions in the comments there, and if you hold on for a second till I can see the screen, because obviously it's above my head, I'll come answer your questions as I can. And cutting this while it's damp is a little bit of a trick. Like I said, the goal here is to have it more or less uniform. I'm not after complete perfection, but I want to knock off as many of the high points as I can from this before I start. You could also run it through a splitter and split it the other direction and make it super consistent for thickness. And the main thing you don't want to do is run your fingers through this blade. So, and then I'll try not to demonstrate that, because if it'll cut leather, it'll cut through fingers like they're butter. It just kind of squares up the edges. Like I said, I'm not, in this case, I'm just trying to get it so that it's more or less completely uniform. It's pretty uniform though, even after wet stretching. There's a few little areas peeling off where it's a little bit wide. What I don't want to have is 1/4 inch to 8 millimeter back to 1/4 inch. So now that lace is pretty uniform. I'm going to back the thing up again. Since I am the stupid cameraman here. So Hooks up on the wall here. Hang it over the hook. My shop's not big enough. So I'm actually gonna have to run a loop over. And that lets me find the center bite. So this is the center bite of this long strip. I cut it on the center bite. So this is a skiving tool that's amazing. It's made by the Why Not Lace Company. This is the skin side, this is the flesh side. And I'm going to skive down a few inches. Probably a little bit more than that. Yep, about like that. I'm going to show you why I'm going to do that here in a minute. Now I could skive the whole strip down, but in this case, because I'm going to use this part to start the wrap on a stick, it gives me a way to do that. So this is a golf grip adhesive. It's a double-sided sticky tape with a Teflon backer. I'm going to take one of these strips. And the secret to this tape is it allows you to permanently adhese leather and lock it in place so it doesn't wander and doesn't come off. It's meant for golf grips, but you can measure it out like so and stick it to your item. And then make sure that the item you're going to wrap or whatever is covered. So, and you can peel it. You can peel it off the backer and leave the glue in place. So when you start a wrap, the direction might matter to you. In this case, it's easier for me to wrap this way. So I'm going to pin it, bring it around. Pull it tight. And lock it in. This will create a permanent handle that's leather wrapped. If you ever have to take it apart, you can damp it with mineral spirits and it'll loosen up the glue. You can change the wrap at some point. That's one way to put a golf grip on a golf club, which is what the adhesive's designed for. And yes, this leather's a little bit wet, but just checking to see if anybody had any questions. I'm just trying to find the seam. Here's the seam. I've got to peel off a section of the Teflon. And if you recall, I doubled the amount needed to wrap. And so by the time I get done here, I'll be almost to the hook. Well, it was on the hook, so almost to the halfway point, even though the width changed when I stretched it. The surface area is identical, or close enough. Which is just kind of shows you how that hack works so well, is even though you're wet stretching the leather, it doesn't matter to the leather. It doesn't matter to the project too much. Okay, so I'm going to bring it around and tie it off because I got another one of these to wrap. So there's a covered stick, covered drumstick. It's pretty uniform, does a pretty good job. And then the other 8.5, 9 foot I'm going to take over and bevel here in a minute. And so I'm going to bevel this whole string so it's ready to weave onto a ball I'm going to put up here. I assume you can see that. So, okay, so I'm going to set that one down. Grab the second stick. I'm going to go through the same basic process. Start peeling. That leaves the adhesive behind. That looks like a good distance to work with to start with. Now we're taking almost all the stretch out as we go. Even though I already stretched it over the hook, it's still got some stretch to it. And you could wait till the leather dries. But I rarely do. When the leather does dry and you roll the stick, the adhesive will grab it even better. Right now it's not grabbing it particularly well because it's got water in the way. Also the leather will We'll cinch down on this as it goes. Myself another 6 inches or 8 inches to wrap. And this is just square cut lace that has been resized a little bit. So it hasn't been beveled yet. just kind of lock off the tension there. Between that and the adhesive, you don't have to worry too much. So now I've got two and I need to bevel all of the strand. So I'm going to move this back over. Hard to get. It's harder for me to be the cameraman and the guy doing this. Okay, so right now I've got the resizer that I done. And what I need to do is bevel. So I'm going to switch the tool to bevel. I get the tripod maybe a little bit out of my way. Yeah. Probably not. You know the problem with tripods. Okay, so I'm going to change the tool on this. Be careful because the blade's still there. This is the tapering attachment. This is a 30-degree beveler. Locks it in place. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to try and set the beveler. So I'm going to squish it up a little bit. Push it in tight. Back it up just a touch. See if it wants to bevel. And then I'm going to tie this back off because I don't want it slipping while I'm doing it. Even though that tape is there, I just don't need trouble. So. Too many strands of leather going too many different directions. Rotate it a little bit. Also, this leather is pretty thick, so I'll probably run it through and trim it down as well. Or I call it knocking the spine out of the lace. So there's a triangular shape here. And I want to knock that triangle off if I can, just to make it thinner, because Okay, then I'm going to back this up a little bit. I'm going to use a splitter to split the thickness down. You see it's pulling a paper thin thing off the back. So now the lace has got a beveled underside, but it also has been squished flat. So there's that one done for right now. We're going to do the same thing here. Undo a few inches and slide it in. Sorry, I'm running it backwards through the splitter. And then I'm going to tie this back off. Temporarily. Just hold itself. One thing that's interesting to me is when you've got the leather damp, it polishes it when it's at a certain temper. split this down. You could also use a bench splitter for this. I'm just using the handheld one because it's sitting on my bench. And the bench is full of stuff. But this is a good job of skiving a paper thin, consistent kind of strip. Okay. Okay, let me see if I can drop the camera a little bit. So I can actually show you what I'm trying to show you. Please be patient. I'm sorry I'm juggling a bunch. I'm going to zoom out. Over. I probably have way more than I need here. That's okay. Like I said, you can always cut stuff shorter. It's really hard to cut stuff longer. I have no idea where my fit is. Yeah, those fids will get you. Okay, so I'm going to cross up here. I'm going to go under here. Cross the X down here. had a lot too much string. Okay, no worries. Better too much than not enough. This gives us a 4 up here. We go over. I'm just going to screw a fit onto the end of this leather. It's not like I don't have 50 of them sitting right here. It makes my job easier. So this is the original strand where it came off of here. It's actually this whole wrap and this ball is being covered by the same strip of leather that I wet stretched earlier, and I will post it so you can see the whole video if you are so inclined to go through and ask the questions and say, what did he do here? But I try and show a bunch of what I do so that it's easier for you to follow. So I'm going to follow on the right side here, and I'm going to try zooming up a little bit. So I'm going to follow on the right side here all the way up and cross this X and follow on the left side on the way down. I'm going to make an expansion pass. This is a 4-bight Turks head right now. So this is 4 bites, and I'm expanding it to 6. I might end up expanding it to 8. I haven't decided quite what I'm doing or how much I'm going to need to do. So I followed it up. We're going to come out of the knot, we go across. If you drop the needle and hold you can find the correct side to make sure you're not constantly trying to twist stuff through. So you want to leave this a little bit loose because you're going to have to come under between those two, up, back, around, and up through here. So you do not want to make this super tight or you'll be heating it. I may already have this knot tighter than I want, but the ball I threw on there is silicone that I had custom made for certain projects. Okay, so I'm going over this X and I'm going to come up and see how we have parallel tracks. We're going to split and do the opposite of whatever those two strands are doing. Yeah, that was fortunate. Again, you want to leave things a lot looser. internally threaded needle. Okay, so here we need to get under here. So this strand needs to move down a little bit. We need to go under this strand and over that strand. And then we're going to come under this strand and up through here. And then these two strands went over, so we're going under. We need to go under here. And then we need to go under here to the parallel to the original strand. And then technically we're back at a full 6. So we're at 6 from 4. Now you're going to have to adjust it because I'm going to actually need my fid here in a few minutes. I wish I knew where I set it. May have to pause, or I may have to wander into the other room to get the fid. So in order to straighten this out, since I'm working on a silicone rubber bead, I'm going to move stuff around. See, it's all bunched up here and it's all open here. You got to bump these strands into a little bit different orientations and drag them, move them. The rubber is grippy, so it's harder than other things. See how we're getting a hexagonal shape now? Sorry, see how we're getting a hexagonal shape now? Okay, and there's a bunch of gaps, so I'm going to run one more. So I need to come up and put 2 there. Okay, so I'm going parallel to this strand. So I opened it up a little bit so I can get in there. The more you do this, every time you go under and over, it expands. Makes it much tougher to get in between stuff. So I'm going off to the right a little bit. And I'm going to run an expansion pass to go from 6 to 8. Then I'll probably dress the knot and call it good. Because I'll never get it completely perfect, I don't think. Because I know the propensity of this material and the stuff here, I'm going to try and leave a place to run the next strand. So shove this over to the side, try not to bend the needle. Okay, I'm going over the top of this X up at the top because we're parallel, and I'm going over the top and I'm paralleling on the other side. Somewhere I have a nice fib. I just don't have it in front of me right now. Poor preparations. Not in terms of the lace, but in terms of having the right tools. So I'm going to leave kind of a big bubble up here because I need to, on the next pass, come under here, over there, and under this thing right down here on the way up. And then I have to come back over the top underneath. So. Okay, so I'm going over this X here at the bottom, and I have to come up and split the 2 parallel ones, doing the opposite. And when I get to the bottom, we'll be at a total of 8 bites. Okay, I'm trying to find the top surface. This is the top surface. Okay. And we gotta go right under here. Remember I said we had to go under this one and over the top here. And I didn't have any half twist, which is kind of cool. Okay, so now it's a little tricky because we got to get underneath. Underneath this one. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and make the pass before I get any more adjusting in. Then I'll probably dress this as an 8-bite. Okay, so right there is where I want to go. And I'm going to bump a bunch of these around, so I'm going to zoom back out. It's easier to see from a distance. Okay, so this is a mess. So you see how it's all bunched up here and it's kind of open here. We need to move some of these strains to the right. You don't have to go a long ways. I just have to get bumped. And then some of these need to get bumped to the left. This is a super dull tent stake that's made out of titanium. So it's nice because it's very hard to actually stab yourself. That being said, it's still possible. So you can see you're starting to get the octagonal pattern on the end. Bring it up a little closer. Now it's not straight, it's not perfect, it's tighter here than here. It's all got to be moved around. But in order to get back to where we started, this strand has to go this way, this strand has to go this way, and this strand here I have to come over this and under this one, in between this one and this one. So every time you think you're making progress, you are. Progress is slow. And I've got this knot too tight already. And so let's see. This strand is this strand, which is this strand. So I pull this backwards, which will give me more room down here, which I forgot to leave myself the room. So I could pry this one up. I could get under this one. Lift it into alignment so I could flop the needle through there. This is good. If you like puzzles, tying Turk's head knots and cover knots in general might be your thing. Might be the fun thing that you're missing in life. Okay. So I'm going to put this back in alignment with the first strand, which means it has to go over this and under here. I've got at least a half twist in there, maybe a twist and a half. Okay. So now I'm in alignment with this strand. This is the first strand. So we're just going to work this all the way around. This strand is this strand is this strand. Which is this strand. Which is this strand. Which is this strand. So you'll notice I'm pulling it towards the hilt, and the reason I'm doing that is to bring this down to close up a bunch of these gaps. Don't ask me why it works, it just does. But sometimes knowing that is beneficial. Okay, so it's sometimes you end up dressing the knot longer than you thought you would because there's more to balancing out how this all works. I always think it's interesting trying to figure out why stuff doesn't move, but then it does. Nice part about veg tan, it's pretty tough. So you can kind of crank on it a lot more than you can with other types of leather. With less fear you're gonna pop something. Anyway, so all that is one piece of leather, so kind of interesting. Still a little more bunched up here. We're starting to get a nice pattern up top. The leather is drying faster than I wanted it to. So I was doing this with damp leather. I'm actually going to have to probably stop the video and go find my fid. This ball is pretty malleable, so you can work a fid under the surface and just kind of slide it along and talk it into bouncing into shape a little bit better. Not something you can do with a solid buildup. This ball is silicone. Pretty cool, huh? So probably do that again. Or at least tighten it again. Sounds like popcorn. No need for excessive force, just the right amount. The right amount is where you don't stab yourself. So it's funny trying to get it to, like it doesn't move, it doesn't move, it doesn't move, it jumps and tries to bite you. Which is okay. Oh, I'm trying to tighten the next strand. Okay. Probably not going to dress it much more than that. I'm going to tuck it underneath though. We'll try to. I ended up pretty twisted there. How twisted am I? Half twist. Not a horrible thing. Pretty cool. Okay, so that's useful for that. If anybody cares, I had these balls custom made for this, for certain applications, like whips. This is not a whip, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to take this one a lot looser than the last one. The last one was being a pill. So I want more room to work. And it's a lot easier to come in and dress it if it's loose to start with, or looser. I got it way too tight, way too soon. Too much paracord, not enough leather work. It's okay if it's a mess. You just want to make sure it's a somewhat loose-ish mess, because this whole thing goes a whole lot easier if you're not fighting yourself. Just my opinion. So right now I'm doing a 4 bight, and then I'll bump it all the way up to an 8 bight here. This is what I put on the other whip. So I went over 2 at the top, 1, 2, under this one, under 2 at the bottom. And then I'm just going over and under all the way around. Okay, so when I come up over this and under this, I'm parallel to my original strand, so I've got a 4 bight. So you can see the 4 bight nature at the top, right? So there's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to come up parallel to this one. But you got to keep the top side, or it's going to drive you nuts. And unfortunately for me, I made this 9 foot long, and I only needed about, 5. So half of this is going to be used for some other project. It's never wasted, but okay. I'm going over the top of those 2, so over this X and under right here. And again, I'm keeping it pretty loose. You notice it's already tightening up, but I'm not snugging anything. See how much of a gap I've got there? Taking it super loose. So I'm going over this X at the bottom, and I have to split what these pairs we're doing here. And then we'll be at 6. So up here, those 2 went over, and I have to get under when you're coming out of the knot. It's the way to think of it. When you're coming out of the knot up here, you're going over this one, but you have to go under the next one, which is kind of hidden down here. I'm not tightening that, I just pinched it to flatten it to get to the hexagonal. So these two lines run under, we're going over. These two lines go over, we're going to go under. Okay, and these two are parallel lines going under, we're going over. But this parallel line, these two parallel lines went over this one, we have to go under this one. And that bottom one is the one that always I forget if I'm going to forget something on this pattern. We go over this one, and we're back to where we started. So now we completed a 6-bight Turk's head. Okay. So I'm going to move these down a little bit and even this knot up a little bit. And I'm going to do it in a way where I'm going to leave myself a big gap where I have to do the expansion pass. Or try to. Squish these two together, this one down. So when I come up here, I've got to go under this one, over those two. So this strand needs to go sideways. You can take advantage of knowing where your expansion pass is going to be. So this one needs to go to the left, and this is the original starting strand. So I'm going to follow that strand on the right side of it. And we're going to run the expansion from 6 to 8. So we're going to go here. We're going to go under this one. I'm going to go over this X and here. We're going to follow it on the left side on the way down. I'm going to leave a nice bubble up at the top because I do not want to get tied up with it being too tight. I'm going to go under where it goes under that one. Under this one. And this is where it gets funny and fun and however you want to call it. So I'm trying to leave a little bit of gap between those two. Because that's where I have to come back. I've got a little bit of a gap between those two here because I've got to do the same. Okay. So I need to cross this X here. So that's the original strand from the handle. I need to come over this X and under here. And again, I'm going to leave a bit of a loop down here because I don't want to be fighting myself or fighting too much tension. Okay, up here, I gotta go over that one, under this one. Okay. So I'm going to go this way. I'm going to pull this out a little bit so I can get under it. Okay. So we're going to come out of the knot and we have to go under the strand that's way underneath here. So this has to go this way. This has to come this way. And come back this way. And this is going to look weird, but you'll see as I pull it through, it won't be such a weird thing. Those two went over, we're coming under. These two went under, we're going over that one, we're coming under this one. Remember I left this bubble down here so we can go this way and get under this one. Okay. Okay. I can go over this one and back underneath, parallel to, or same place where it was. I'm going to put it right on top of the original strand. Some days stuff fights you, you know. That's just how that's going to go some days. Okay, so I'm gonna tuck these to the left because I've still got gaps. I can bring myself to the left. And I can wedge the very smooth tent stake spike, whatever you want to call it, underneath and kind of just even stuff out. Okay, so this is where the original strand is. I'm just going to start dressing the knot a little bit. I'm going every other point. That would help if I grabbed the right strand. It's easy to get lost in here. you're kind of working a bubble or a loop of lace all the way through this knot. You may have to go in circles a couple times to get it where you want it. Putting some leather dressing on the lace will help this process quite a bit. I didn't do that because the ball is silicone. I'm not sure how the oil and the silicone will react. Yeah. Try not to get the lace to flip on you as you do this. Okay. So. Trying to catch the end of a feather that you're pulling through to seat it. Anyway, you can go in and dress the knot. Take it off the shoulder a little bit up here. But you can see there's an octagonal end down here. Pretty cool, huh? So, and one interesting secret when you want to lock off the strand that you pulled is use a scalpel, put tension on it, set it up against the edge of the next piece of lace and roll it forward. And try not to jab yourself, because that would be bad. But then that tail is tucked down in there, and you won't see it. You won't really see where it starts and where it ends. And that's part of the whole point of this. So, here's a match set of kind of drumsticky. I'm going to have to play with this one. I'm going to have to roll this and see how it turns out. I may have to undo the whole thing, but anyway, that's what we were doing today. Something strange. Got to do something different once in a while. So. Anyway. Then your extra piece of string, you just hank it up. I hope you all enjoyed yourself. Just check with pocket snakes. I'm going to sign off because I got other things I got to go do, but I can't keep live streaming. But I will post this video on my channel. So if you go ahead and hit the subscribe or go click on me somewhere in here, I'm going to put this under leather working or something like that. And it's like an hour and 50 some minutes, and it'll take a day or two before video will come up. But I went through the process of wet stretching the cowhide for this. So the original cowhide looked like this. You know, it's quite a bit wider and it's kind of stretchy, and I took all the stretch out and wound it on, and this is all one piece including the knot on the end. Kind of a fun gizmo, I don't know. But if you want to wet stretch leather, the whole process is contained herein, and I guess it's been 2 hours. So I bid you adieu. Have a great day. Let's check with pocket snakes. Check out pocketsnakes.com, or my Chop Pocket Snakes on YouTube and other places. It's Pocket Snakes or Pocket Snakes Webs. Thank you for your time.